Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, This Story Ain't Over. So today we are back with yet another reading experiment video. So for this video, we are doing yet another Goodreads experiment. You guys seem to like the last one I did where I found a list on Goodreads that talked about the most popular books so far of 2022. And I picked 5 of those books and I read them and I reviewed them and you guys seem to enjoy that. So I thought I would do another variation of that, but with a different list on Goodreads. So this time I found the list that talked about the most reviewed books on Goodreads of the past 5 years. So of the 60 books on this list, I've actually read about 20 of them, I think. I've read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I've read The Silent Patient, The Midnight Library, Normal People, The Hate You Give, Circe, I've read Daisy Jones and the Six, Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I've read Turtles All the Way Down, Such a Fun Age, They Both Die at the End, Anxious People, Beach Read, People We Meet on Vacation, and then I've also read Malibu Rising, and I've read The Love Hypothesis, and I've also read The Kiss Quotient, I've read Conversations with Friends, The House in the Cerulean Sea, and finally I've read Mexican Gothic on this list. So of the 60 books, I've read 20 of them, so there are 40 books to pick from, and I picked 5 that I personally was interested in, that I had heard things about, that I thought were gonna be good, that I would actually enjoy. But before we talk about each of them and my review, let's talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is VIVAIA. I am so excited to talk about VIVAIA because I've talked about them once before. You can go check out that video if you're interested. It was another reading experiment where I read 3 of Books and Lala's favorite books ever, and I decided to see if I could trust her taste. It was a really fun video, so go check that out. You can also learn more about VIVAIA there. But basically VIVAIA is an ethically responsible shoe and apparel brand for everyone. They were kind enough to gift me 3 pairs of shoes today, and all of them are made from recycled materials, which is super exciting to me because I'm trying to be more sustainable with my choices. And each of these shoes feature thick cut natural herbal insoles and anti-slip rubber outsoles. Their material is one of my favorites ever. It's both deodorant and breathable while also keeping you warm and keeping you comfortable and flexible. All their shoes are also packaged with 100% recycled cardboard. So those shoe boxes you get, they're 100% recycled cardboard, and they also have free returns and exchanges worldwide. So I'm going to show you the 3 pairs of shoes that I got from VIVAIA, and I'm so excited because they're all so freaking gorgeous. So the first pair of shoes that I have is the Jade Square Toe Slide Heels, and these are in deep ebony, so this beautiful black color. And as you can see, these are just like so gorgeous. They have a wonderful heel, but also like the material of the shoe is so freaking nice. I just love it so much, and I love the texture of it. It's so pretty. I've been looking for a pair of square toe heels like this for the longest time, especially like slide ones like this, and these are honestly so freaking comfortable. I wore them for a night out in downtown Toronto where I'm walking around a lot, and I wore them with this cute black crop top and a red pencil skirt, and it made for the cutest, pretty sexy outfit for a night out, and I just had so much fun. And honestly, with all the walking that I did that night, I felt so comfortable. Next, I have the most adorable pair of shoes that you will ever find on the planet, and those are the Tracy pointed toe chunky heels in cream ivory. These are super cute because these little bows that you see here, you can actually remove them. So if you're not feeling the bow look, you can definitely wear them plain without the bow and as like this cute little chunky heel, just simple. But if you are feeling the bow, which I personally did, they are super, super cute. And one of my favorite things about these shoes in particular, which I wish all heels had, is this cute little counter patch at the back of the heel, which prevents you from getting blisters on the back of your ankle. I absolutely hate it when shoes give me blisters, and these ones really help with that whole aspect. And so I actually wore these shoes for my sister's bridal shower a couple weeks ago on the weekend, and I was emceeing and hosting the entire day, and I was on my feet for like 5 hours, and these were so freaking comfortable. Usually when I'm wearing heels like for that long and walking around and on my feet, I feel terrible afterwards. My feet are like aching and they hurt, but these were so comfortable and I just felt like so great afterwards. It's just so nice to be able to go through my regular routine and also like fun things without being in pain and still looking super cute. Finally, we have probably my favorite pair of them all, which is the Aria 5 pointed toe ballet flats in lavender. So I've mentioned this before, but purple is one of my favorite colors ever, especially lavender. And so having a pair of lavender flats is just everything I could have hoped for in life. But these are actually the Aria 5, which are VIVAIA's like signature pair of flats. These are like upgraded from their previous version of flats, and they've got so many great improvements. They've also got the back counter patch that helps with preventing blisters, and these are just the most comfortable pair of flats I've ever owned. I used to be the person who wore a lot of flats when I was younger, especially in university, and I found that a lot of them weren't very comfortable and my feet hurt afterwards, but these ones have like a nice insole that gives you some arch support as well, and these are honestly just so cute to wear out. They have this beautiful fabric texture to them, but they are really breathable and comfortable, and I've worn these both to like the grocery store with some bike shorts on, but also for like a day out for brunch with like a cute little dress. If you're looking for the perfect pair of flats that are both everyday and for going out, these ones are the ones for you. I absolutely love all three pairs of shoes that VIVAIA sent me. They are so comfortable and stylish, and I honestly can't look back at any other brand of shoes after wearing these ones because my feet are not the same. So if you want to grab your own pair of VIVAIA shoes, I highly recommend going and using my code JEN-nah-nee15 to grab 15% off your items. You can use the link in my description and use that code, get that extra 15% off. Thank you so much to VIVAIA for sending me these shoes and sponsoring this video, and now let's get into my thoughts on each of these 5 most reviewed books on Goodreads. So the 5 books that I picked for this video start with Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. This one I picked mainly because I've heard so many amazing things about it. I know it has a TV show as well, which I haven't seen, but I'm hoping to at some point. And I also know that this one is a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. And personally, I've found that a lot of the books that I have picked up that have been Reese Witherspoon book club picks have been ones that I've actually enjoyed. I think there was only like 1 or 2 misses, but of the ones that I picked up, I've enjoyed most of them. So that gives me a lot of confidence. And all I really know about this one is that it's set in like a small town-ish, and it involves like these 2 different families. I know one of them is a bit more well off than the other, and that's about all I know. I know the author is Asian, but I'm not sure about the main characters in the story, and that's about all I really know. I think this one's like a literary contemporary fiction. I don't honestly know how this one's gonna go. I'm not completely convinced that I'm gonna love it, but we'll see how it goes. Next, I have one that I sort of picked on a whim out of the books on the list, but that is An American Marriage by Tyree Jones. And this one I've seen the cover around so many times, but I honestly know nothing about it. I had to read the description a little bit so I could actually like confidently choose to read this. And it apparently follows a couple who has been married, but her husband sort of gets wrongfully accused of something and he goes to jail. And so he is released later on and they have to like put their marriage back together, something like that. So it is a story of a marriage, which is pretty obvious from the title. I don't know if I'm gonna really like this one. We'll see. It seems like it's gonna be a literary fiction. It seems like it might be a little bit of a heartbreaking situation. And yeah, overall, we'll see how this one goes. Again, not super confident that I'm gonna love this one, but I don't think it's gonna be bad because I have heard so many amazing things about it. And the rating for this one is really high on Goodreads as well, so we'll see how it goes. Next, I'm gonna be reading Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This is another one that I've seen around so many times. I used to work for Chapters Indigo in Canada, and it's a bookstore, so I used to see this book all around the store all the time because it was a bestseller at the time that I was working at Chapters. And yeah, I just feel like I've seen it around so many times. I've heard people say like generally good things about it. I honestly don't know what it's about, so we're gonna see how it goes. I am, again, not 100% confident that I'm gonna like this one, but I've heard a lot of people say great things, so we're gonna give it a chance. Next, I'm gonna read a book that has been talked about so much all over the book community, all over the world, and that is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I know next to nothing about this book aside from the fact that it's about 2 identical twins and they're both Black, but the 2 of them run away and one of them sort of leaves and decides to start passing as white, and so she builds this whole family as a white woman, whereas the other one lives her life as a Black woman. And I find this concept so interesting. I love books that delve into race and like history, and I think this is gonna be so interesting. I think it's also set like in the 60s, I wanna say. I'm not completely sure about that, So I think this is gonna be really, really interesting and I am excited to pick it up. I've heard really amazing things about it, but yeah, again, it's like a literary fiction, so I'm like not 100% sure I'm gonna love it, but we're gonna see how it goes. The final book on this list that I'm gonna read is one that I'm very apprehensive about and I'm not sure I'm gonna love it, but we'll see how it goes. That one is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. The main reason why I'm apprehensive about this one is not because I think it's gonna be bad or like a really cute romance, it's because it's been hyped so hard and talked about so much in the past few years that I honestly just can't get it out of my head. Like my expectations are sky high for this one. And so I'm just scared about my own reaction to it as opposed to the quality of the book itself. So we're gonna see how this goes. I do think it's gonna be cute. I've heard so many people rave about this one and how they felt so seen by it, and I totally appreciate like that aspect of the book and how so many people love it for that reason. So I do want to give it a chance. So we're gonna see how it goes. Hello friends, let's start with the first book for this video, which is Little Fires Everywhere. So I read this one on audiobook mainly. This book was freaking amazing. I definitely rated it 5 stars. It was so well done, so well written, and just one of those like books that's basically a character study and just pulls apart the way society works, and I loved it so much. It was so realistic and just felt like the characters were coming alive, and I just loved all of the drama and the tension between all the characters and the kids and the moms and, you know, just the general community, and it was just so well done. Like I think there were so many themes and layers to the story that I just was mind blown, honestly. The entire time I was just like listening on the edge of my seat, wanting to know what was going to happen next and wanting to know what the next secret or reveal was going to be. I think this book did a really good job of both being a literary fiction but also feeling slightly like a thriller in the way that it delivered some of the twists and reveals, which I really, really loved. Basically, for those of you who don't know what Little Fires Everywhere is about, it basically follows 2 families. So one is this like mother and daughter who have recently moved to this community called Shaker Heights. I think that's what it's called. And then the other family is the Richardsons, which is like this wealthy white family with I think 4 kids, and they are basically subletting a house to this mother and daughter. And you see how their families start to get interconnected when the kids start becoming friends and start dating each other and that kind of thing. And then the mothers start dealing with each other a little bit more. And this book actually really reminded me of Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I think that's the author's name. That book was so amazing and also hits on a lot of the same topics that this book does, and I felt like the tone of both books was so similar. It's this very like dry tone to the writing that like looks at so many characters and presents the characters as they see themselves in their own light, but you start to see like the flaws in their own logic and you start to see how they are actually the villain in the story even though they think they're the hero. So I felt like Mrs. Richardson in Little Fires Everywhere felt really similar to the white woman in Such a Fun Age. I forget her name now, but the vibe was so similar and I love that book also. So if you like Such a Fun Age, I would highly recommend reading Little Fires Everywhere or vice versa, because yeah, they felt really similar to me and I loved the way that both of them were written and the way that they tackle the idea of race and privilege and all of that. I'm just gonna say I love the kids and I loved seeing all of their drama. My favorite character was definitely Izzy, because no surprise there. I also really loved Mia. I found the whole child plot line like so heartbreaking, and overall I just loved the look at like motherhood as well and how these different mothers sort of operate. There's like 4 different mothers that show up in the book, and yeah, I just found it so fascinating, and just like the differences in class and like wealth and also race. So this is the thing that I don't know if I read right with this book. So I know the TV show Mia is black, but in the book, I'm quite certain she's white. And if you guys know the answer to this, correct me if I'm wrong. I was listening to the audiobook, so I didn't really have the chance to like flip back and look for, you know, mentions of her race, but I'm pretty sure that Mia and Pearl are assumed to be white in the book. But I love that they actually made them black in the show. One, because like it never hurts to have more diversity, but also I think it adds like a different layer to the story, like an extra layer to all of this examination of privilege and race and all this, because Mrs. Richardson's actions are just like so much more worse when you add the race element in. And yeah, I just felt like as I was reading the book, it felt as if, to me at least, that they were black. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know if you thought the same as you were reading, or if you know the answer to what race they are. But yeah, I'm really excited to check out the movie or TV show. I forget which one it is, because yeah, the book was fantastic and just definitely a 5-star read. I am so glad that I picked this one up. I honestly just had zero expectations for it, went into it knowing nothing, and was so pleasantly surprised. Alrighty friends, next book, An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. This book was, again, another one I was not expecting to like all that much. Definitely not something I would usually pick up. And overall, guys, I loved it so much. This was another 5-star reads for me, like Little Fires Everywhere. I just didn't expect to like it this much, but I was so hooked by the story. I literally finished this in like a day and a half. I was listening to the audiobook while doing some work, and it was just so amazing and well written and just mind-blowingly beautiful. I love that it was such a complex story and complicated situation for these characters, and it just made for a really rich and beautiful story. If you're gonna read this book, I would highly recommend the audiobook just because they have 2 different narrators, so one for the husband and one for the wife. There's also another POV character that comes in as well that is like a huge part of the story as well. And overall, it's just like a really heartbreaking story. I definitely wanted to cry by the end, and there were some like really heartbreaking and beautiful parts in between. What I loved about this book was that the characters are never shown as being like right or wrong. They are just very flawed and messy human beings that mess up and do things and, you know, end up in situations that they can't really control. And also they mess up and end up in situations that they can control. But regardless, I think it was just interesting to see, you know, every aspect of them and also both sides of the story. I definitely hated both characters at different points throughout the book as well, which I found interesting because I think I started out like liking one of them and then not liking the other one, and then it just kept switching and switching and switching, and by the end I was like, okay, I'm good with both of you. And I really loved how the story was wrapped up by the end as well. I appreciated, you know, the struggle that they go through and both of their personal struggles. I can see how some people may side with one or the other character, but I think both of them had reasons for what they do, and even if it's not necessarily what you would do or the decisions that you would make, I think it's valid to think that this is what someone might do, and it made a very realistic story to me at least. And yeah, just overall this was just so heartbreaking, and I felt so much for the characters. The whole plotline of Roy, the husband, going to prison for something that he didn't do was just so heartbreaking, and I think is a huge part of the story. And the story overall has like huge commentary over the place of Black people in America and, you know, the injustices against them, and how it's much more easy for a Black man to get incarcerated than a white person. And it was just overall like a book that not only just examined the character relationships and emotional relationships between these characters, but also made broader commentary on race and class and, you know, America in general. I actually really love the title of this book, An American Marriage, because I think there's so many aspects of this story that's just so quintessentially American, and, you know, it is a situation that is very much an American situation, and yeah, I just loved it so much. Definitely a 5-star read, like one that I will continuously be thinking about for years to come. And yeah, this is just overall fantastic. Like, I don't really want to give you a lot of in-depth spoilers and things because I think this is one of those books that you just need to like go into without knowing anything, and it's just wonderful and amazing and so well done. It's very messy though, so get ready to like be angry and sad and, you know, have your emotions like ripped this way and that. I was on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what was gonna happen next. And these characters are messy. Again, they like do bad things and they are by no means perfect, but I think they are very human, which I loved. Hello friends, it's a little while later. I have finished Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, and I have thoughts. So this one I would definitely rate around 3 stars. Nothing more than that because I didn't really enjoy the experience of reading this one. I objectively don't think it's a bad book, and I did start to like it more towards the end. However, I did really not like it for like the first third / half of the book, and I struggled to sort of get into it. And when I'm filming this right now, it's actually been a couple weeks since I read this book, and honestly, I can't remember much of what happens in this book, and I feel like that sort of speaks to what I sort of felt about it. It wasn't that memorable for me. I just found that I didn't really like the main character all that much, but I understand that she's meant to be like slightly unlikable at the beginning, and then you're supposed to understand more about her as you go along, and she is like someone who is generally misunderstood by a lot of people, which I understand. Like, I see the point of the book, but I didn't love it, and it definitely wasn't like a favorite of mine, and I do feel like it's just not my cup of tea in terms of the writing style and just like the storyline. This book did remind me a lot of the book Convenience Store Woman, which has been really popular on Book Talk and like all over the book community. It's by Sayaka Murata, and I read this recently, actually, I think about a month ago, and I did really like it by the end, but it was quite weird, and it had a similar main character who is sort of like on the outskirts of society, doesn't really know how to act around people, doesn't know social cues, and is sort of satisfied with like their place in life. And I think I like that one a little bit more because it was more of a commentary on like society and like the expectations that we have on women, and that one is set in Japan, and so it was also slightly Japan-centric and like the culture there, but I felt like it was making broader commentary, which I enjoyed. Whereas this one, I feel like it was making some broader commentary, but I feel like a lot of it was like personal to the character, and she was just so weird to me. In Convenience Store Woman, the main character was slightly more believable to me, I guess, or like understandable, whereas I struggled to understand Eleanor Oliphant. And another note that I want to make on the comparison between this book and Convenience Store Woman is that this one definitely feels a lot more American, and it also feels a lot more like entitled. Like, it has an American entitlement, whereas Convenience Store Woman is very much, she is Japanese and she is thinking of herself as like a cog in a machine, or like one part of society holding up the whole. And I really appreciate, like, you know, the one part of collective idea. She is, you know, working for other people as well, not just for herself. Whereas this book, I know she's been through a lot of tough stuff, but I just felt like a lot of the stuff that she says or thinks in like the first half of the book just came off so entitled and rude, especially those two scenes at the beginning of the book, the one where she's getting waxed and then the other one where she is at the nail tech, I think. She just comes off so entitled, and I just didn't appreciate her as a character at those beginning parts. Like, I understand how she doesn't understand social cues, but I don't think that gives her a license to just be like rude to service workers. I think that's just ridiculous. So yeah, I didn't appreciate that part of the book, and I think it definitely irked me, which is like part of why I didn't love the rest of the book. Like, I thought it got sweeter as it went on, and it had like a kind of cute message. But yeah, I just didn't love this one. I did like the unreliable narrator aspect of this. I think it was interesting, and I did like that we got parcels of Eleanor's past as we went along, and we start to realize that she was sort of repressing things. That aspect I really enjoyed, and like the psychological aspect of it. But I think just generally the story just wasn't my cup of tea. It was very much like the day-to-day things that are going on with Eleanor. There was a bit of a romance, which was like kind of nice, and it was like sort of sweet by the end, but I didn't like love it. And I think I would have actually preferred this to be like something without a romance, like that she starts to open up on her own and like figures her shit out through other people, but like not through like a love story, I guess. My thoughts are all very disjointed because it's been a while since I read this, so I apologize. But yeah, that's just generally how I'm feeling. This book didn't wow me. I had heard so many people talk about this book. I saw it all over bestseller shelves when I was working at Indigo back when this came out. So I feel like it's been stuck in my memory, and the cover of it is like very vivid in my memory. But yeah, it just didn't wow me, and I'm like, I kind of wish I didn't actually pick this one up, but it's okay. So yeah, it was like kind of a 3 stars when I finished the book, but now that I'm thinking back on it, it's more of a 2.5. I do understand that she was meant to be unlikable and that they're supposed to understand her more. And I do empathize with the fact that she went through a lot of terrible things prior to the start of the book, but it's sort of just like randomly dropped throughout the book, and she sort of says it to people, and it like speaks to the like level of psychosis that she's in and how she's just referring to these things in such a blasé way. But I think it was hard to connect to her as a character because she was talking about it in a blasé way, if that makes sense. I don't know, this just wasn't my type of book. I can see someone else really enjoying this type of book, but I just wasn't really feeling it. I personally like the emotional nature and the very dramatic nature of Little Fires Everywhere and An American Marriage. So yeah, this one just definitely didn't hit it for me. So far, I still feel like we're doing pretty good for this video. This is like 1 miss out of 3. So I'm still very excited for the next couple books that we have. Hello friends, we are on to the next book, which is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and I am so excited to talk about this one because this was definitely a 5-star read. I can totally see why this was one of the most talked about books of the year it came out. I think it was in 2020, I'm not sure. But I totally see why that was and why it was so highly reviewed and why so many people were just raving about it. I think it did such an incredible job with so many of the topics that it tackled, and it was just so beautifully written as well. It was such a touching story of two different sisters, but also a story about race, about colorism, about sexuality. It had so many themes going for it, and I loved every moment of it, honestly. I did have some trouble getting into it at the initial start, but I did love the way that it opens up talking about this small town, the history of it. And it was honestly just such an interesting story. I've never read anything like this, and it was just so well done. I will say that my favorite parts of the book were definitely Stella's sections. I think she was such a fascinating character to follow because she is obviously dealing with this internalized racism. She is pretending to be white. There is this sense of fear that she's gonna get caught, but you're also fascinated by the fact that no one has realized, and you're also watching as she feels trapped among other white people, and she feels scared when other black people come around because she is scared of being caught. She's scared of them recognizing something in her because they are like her. And I think that that was such a fascinating concept, and I just loved reading her sections of the book. I think she was just such a cool character, and I think she had some valid concerns despite, pretending to be white and doing all of these things that was not true to herself. She had valid wants. She had things that she wanted out of life. What's wrong with wanting to have a cushy life with, a husband that loves you, who provides for everything, and so that you don't have to work. She had real things that she was running away from. She was running away from sexual assault. She was running away from a world that really didn't want her there, and I think it was just so interesting to follow her character. I sympathized with her the most and empathized with her, and I just loved her as a character. So yeah, Stella was definitely the star for me, but I also really loved Jude and Reese. I think their characters were incredible. I love the way that they fall in love. I love the tenderness in their relationship. I love the discussion of gender and the way that Reese sort of views himself and the slow way that he starts to open up to Jude. I think that was so beautiful, and just seeing their relationship over many years was so gorgeous to see. And then I also really love how this book brought Kennedy and Jude together. I thought it was so well done, the way that they meet and how their relationship progresses and how they start to actually act like their cousins, and I just loved the entire thing. It was just so beautiful to see, and I think it was one of the happier moments of the book that really gave you hope, and I just loved seeing that. I love that this book was it starts off in a really bleak place, but it shows you the hope in the world and the possibility for people to come together. But I also just loved the nuance to everything in this book. No character is right or wrong. They're just trying their best, and I loved every moment of it. I can't not read this book because it was so amazing. And yeah, my thoughts are really disjointed right now because it's been a little bit since I read this, but I loved it so much, and it was so good, and I want everything in the world for these characters because they were so endearing. This was just so good, and you should all pick this up 100%. If I had to pick one of the books out of this entire series of books that you should read, this is the one, because I think you're gonna learn so much, you're gonna feel so much, and it was just such an amazing book. Hello friends, we are on to the final book of this video, which is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. So this book is definitely the one that I was dreading the most while doing this video because I honestly was so scared that the book wasn't gonna live up to the hype that it has received over the past few years. It was one of the most popular books of the year it came out. So many people love it. And I think personally for me, much of the reason why I hesitated to pick this up is one, because it's a romance and I don't usually read a lot of romances. I do like reading them, but it's a lot of times I get tired of them by the end and I need something else with my romances. I need some sort of family element or fantasy element or something else to keep the story going because I'm a very plot-driven reader. So that was one reason. And then another reason was that it's really hyped. And then a third reason was just that I had heard that it was a very happy book. and I had a feeling that I wouldn't really love that aspect of the book. I am a very cynical person, actually. I try to stay positive, but I think when I'm reading, I do like some trauma and strife and things going on in the books that drives the characters forward and that, you know, leaves you with a sense of like bittersweetness by the end. Like, I love bittersweet books, ones that have a bittersweet ending. I don't actually love books that tie everything up in a neat bow because I think life isn't really like that. And that's part of the reason why I don't really gravitate towards romance all that often, because I'm like, this is gonna be too happy. And sometimes I do really like happy books to just like lift me up. But other times when I'm like reading because like I want to fall in love with a book because it's gonna be like my new favorite thing, I usually want some bittersweetness to it. So these are just thoughts that I want to use to preface this, because guys, I honestly freaking love this book. It was so good. It was so good. It was so cute. It was all of the things. I do feel like I am a bit torn on this book though. I can't really rate it a 5-star. I mean, I could if I just wanted to be like, yeah, this made me happy and it was super cute, but I think objectively, I would rate it more of like a 4.5, because while I did love it, it's not like my favorite book ever, but I think it was so amazing. Like the romance, the characters, the banter, all of the cute moments, all of the just like wonderful commentary on like the politics and like our current state of the world and like the polarization in our communities. I just loved so many things about it, and I love that it was like sort of this like hopeful narrative and this sort of what if, you know, this like sort of fan fiction of our real world. And I loved that it was that. Like, I love that it did this thing that no other book has really done. And I think it was just so important that it was like this happy, hopeful narrative, and that, you know, queer people got to see themselves in this book. Like, it's just so beautiful. However, as a personal preference of mine, it gives me anxiety to read a book like this. I honestly was kind of anxious after finishing this book. I went to bed and I had finished reading this like right before bed. I think at like 12 o'clock. And usually I don't dream or have nightmares all that often, but every now and then I do. And so I slept the same amount of time that I usually do, but I had 2 awful nightmares that night after I finished this book, because this whole idea of everything being happy and wonderful gave me anxiety, because I'm like, nothing has gone wrong. Something has to go wrong. And so literally my brain filled in that space over the night. And so I had 2 awful nightmares. And so I think that just speaks to who I am as a person. Like, I'm always expecting something bad to happen. And I should probably talk to a therapist about that. But regardless, that's just like my look on this. Like, I can see why some people might not enjoy this because it is so happy. I think I was able to like weigh the good parts about this book over it being too happy, if that makes sense. But yes, overall, I did really enjoy this. I think it was such a cute book. I loved all the moments between Henry and Alex. I loved their dynamic. I love the way that Alex comes to terms with his sexuality. I loved his friends and their dynamic. I loved his dynamic with his mother. I loved just everything going on, all the cute little side characters. The little reveal with Zara at the end was fantastic. And I think this was just so darn cute and like definitely a new fave. But yeah, again, like, it was just so happy, and I think part of me was just like, something bad has to happen, and like, you know, the real world wouldn't be like this. Like, I wish it was, but it's not. But I think it's nice to have this in fiction, like to see this alternate reality where things do actually go the way that we hoped, and I loved it. So yeah, it was fantastic. It's just such a great, happy, hopeful book that really lifts you up, but it still keeps things real. Like, the whole thing about, you know, their secret coming out and their relationship getting revealed, like, all that felt realistic. It's just like, it tips reality in like slightly direction that is like, things are going the way that you wanted, versus like the reality of the world being full of very different people and very polarized people, and a lot of things not going the way that we want. The stuff going on with abortion in the US being a case in point. So like, yeah, I loved how hopeful this was, but I was also like, this would never happen because people are awful. So that, I think that aspect just made me depressed, I think, and like gave me anxiety. But aside from that, it's a great book. You should definitely go read it. I loved it. And the romance itself was like fantastic. So well done. I think at the beginning, I didn't love the whole hate to love aspect. I think that's been overdone a lot, and I don't think it's done well in contemporary books, like contemporary romances versus like fantasy or whatever. But once they got together, it was fantastic. Like, the whole dynamic, the letters that they write to each other were amazing. Chef's kiss, like so good. And the different quotes that they pull out of history between different people and like different queer figures in history, fan-fucking-tastic. So amazing. I like honestly highlighted so many of those passages in the book and I want to go back to them because yeah, they were just wonderful. Such a beautiful story, such a beautiful love story, and yeah, I'm just in love with this book. It was great. But again, like the anxiety is real. But with that said, those are all the books for this video of Goodreads most reviewed books over the past 5 years. I'm actually so glad that I decided to do this video because a lot of these books were ones that I had hesitated to pick up because again, they were so popular and they had been talked about so much that I didn't think I was gonna love them or they wouldn't live up to the hype. And I honestly hadn't thought about a lot of these that much because they were more like literary fiction and they were just from a genre that I don't really read. And this went so well. Out of the 5 books I rated, 3 of them 5 stars, 1 of them 4.5 stars, and then 1 of them 2.53 stars. And I think that's like the best track record I've had for one of these experiment videos, so I'm really glad with how this turned out. And yeah, I'm just like so happy because these are like some staples in the literature of the past 5 years, and I know so many people love these books and they have become like some of my new favorites. Little Fires Everywhere and American Marriage I love so much, and I didn't have a physical copy that I went out and bought a physical copy because I needed them on my shelf. So like that's how much I enjoyed this whole thing. So yeah, it was just fantastic, and thank you guys so much for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts on each of these books and if you agreed or disagreed with anything I said in my reviews of them. I think overall each of these books had so many layers to them and so much depth to them that I think there's so much we can talk about. So definitely leave me a comment down below. And once again, thank you so much to the sponsor of today's video, which is VIVAIA. I absolutely love their shoes since the first time that they sent them to me, and this time they're sustainable, they're comfortable, and they're so freaking stylish. I hope you go check them out and grab your own pair of shoes. You can grab 15% off with my code Jananie15. So grab that discount and go grab your first pair of VIVAIA shoes. With all that said, thank you so much for watching. Go check out my Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and TikTok in the description down below, and I will see you in my next video. So please remember that this story ain't over. Bye!